Some heroes feature in the latest FUT Fantasy promo, and one of them we're going to talk about today. 88 rated Crouch has entered the building, and I can't help it. I'm going to say the most obvious thing. In the previous lengthy meta, I sensed this card would have been insane, but obviously we're no longer in that meta, and it's been a long time since that was actually a thing. But does anyone else miss that early game gameplay, or is it just me? Anyway, this item is currently costing around the 300k mark, and yes, it is a live item, so it still could get better. If you're unsure on how these items can achieve upgrades, we do have guides written up on the FUTBin website, but essentially for the heroes in Fantasy FUT or FUT Fantasy, if their representative club wins one of their next 6 games, they get a +1, and if they avoid losing a game in their next 6, they get another +1 and some traits. So there is potential for some of these cards to get really good if they can achieve both of those upgrades. Okay then, let's now talk about this Crouch more specifically. Now, in regards to accelerate type, he actually can be lengthy with the Architect Chem style, but any other that you use is going to make him controlled. For this review, we did actually go with the Architect. Instantly though, it's worth mentioning about this item that he has actually had a skill move upgrade, so yeah, this Peter Crouch is a 5-star skiller, which I'm sure will be appealing to some portions of the player base. Anyway, let's talk most importantly about his in-game performance, because that's what you're all here for, right? The biggest positives for us actually came in the passing department, which might surprise you, but he was really impressive in that area. The short passing game was brilliant, and his through balls, they just seemed to be perfectly weighted, which we were very impressed with, as I've already mentioned, and you'll see in the footage some really nice passes from the forward. The other thing that we liked was the physicals. I think you'll all have expected this though. He's a notable presence on the field with his size. He's the perfect player to aim for when taking goal kicks, when crossing into the box, or even just hoofing the ball up the field. And obviously with him being 6'7", having decent jumping and strength, he is rarely going to lose an aerial duel unless you're up against, you know, a really premium centre back. But yeah, definitely a player to aim for, and if you like the hold up play style of gameplay, then this is obviously a card that you can get something out of. So it has been all positive so far, but there are some notable negatives. The acceleration is the first one for us, just off the mark, just very slow, and it's probably not just the acceleration stat that's at fault here. We have also got to consider this guy's body size. Like in-game, you know, he's a huge forward, he is going to be a bit slower because of that, and that obviously does also have some impact on his dribbling as well. Another obvious negative is the 3-star weak foot, the left foot. It's not terrible, but as you'd expect, pretty inconsistent on that front. And then the last thing to mention, which I wouldn't say it's a standout negative, but it's definitely something worth noting, the shooting just wasn't as good as we hoped it would be. For someone who is, you know, a high rated forward who has 90 shooting, we just didn't feel his in-game shooting felt as good as the stats suggested, so that was a bit of a shame. So yeah, just something to note there. I definitely want to reiterate the point, we are not saying he's terrible in front of goal, but just nowhere near as good as we hoped he would be. Overall, I think it's fair to say this is definitely the kind of player who will fit a certain play style. Some people will enjoy this item, but it's also just so easy to see why some people will find this item frustrating to use. If you want to read a more in-depth play review on this item, it's now live on the FUTBin website.